Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. Welcome back. Today is the day we are going to finish my Gap quilt. No worries friends, I will give you a full review of what this quilt looks like all done at the end. But right now, I need to hand sew my little embroidered message on here for my granddaughter. And we need to get busy squaring up this quilt and doing all the things, right? Let me show you the journey to get to this. Enough talking already. Let's go. Here's the quick 30-second recap of Gap quilting. What I did was take some focus fabrics. They were rectangles, and then I took some other block fabrics that were different sizes. It didn't matter what it was pinwheels or stars or whatever it was. And then I took background fabric and then I filled in all the gaps that were around the focal fabrics and the little pinwheels and all that. Now it's important to note, I did make 2 of these. I have a full tutorial on my channel. This particular quilt has a linen backing on it. It's been free motion quilted. Let's finish up this quilt, square it up, and bind it so my granddaughter can have it for her very first birthday. The best way that I came up with to square my quilts on the corners is to actually cut the corners first and then go in for the sides. I'm going to take the biggest square ruler that I have, which is 12.5 inches square, and I'm just going to line it up. Now I'm looking at a couple things here. I'm looking at where the border seam is, if there's any other seams in here, like this one along this picture here. And I just am trying to line it up best I can. If you find that you're off a little bit, go for the happy medium. So say this was off a little bit and I needed to tweak it a little bit, I would go just a bit that way and try to tweak it if I'm off within the seams in here. But this one looks pretty good actually. It's not off really at all, so I'm good there. And I'm also looking to see how much I have hanging off here, because if you have a lot hanging off, then you got issues, right? After you have this squared up, hold this here, and then you're going to take another roller and you're going to butt that up against here. And you're going to line it up to see if you're pretty much straight there as far as what you're going to cut off. You're going to look in here, which I think it looks pretty good. And then I'm going to bring this ruler over here, still while holding this here. And then I'm going to butt that up there and see where I'm at here, which, yeah, that looks pretty good, friends. I don't know, that looks pretty good. I'm going to hold this here and come in, make sure everything is out where it should be. I'm cutting backwards because I'm trying to get the shot for you guys, so cut properly though, like you're going to hold and slice at your table. Now I can even still keep this here and bring this in and line this up after I've gotten that square done. And I can just match this up here. And again, I am cutting backwards. Oh my word. You have a straight cut here, and you can also come back over here and do just a little bit. You don't want to go all the way down though, not yet. But we want to go down enough to where we can line up a really long ruler and match up the sides so that there's no hills and valleys in this. I'm just going to line it up. The other thing you want to be mindful of when you are squaring up these quilts is that you can see here on my scrappy piecing, I have some sticking out and some that go in a little bit more. So you have to be mindful of where that most inner piece is. Look at that cute little heart in there. Oh my word. This quilt is adorable. I'm going to hold that square ruler down and I'm just going to line this up to see where I'm at, just edgewise. Yeah, that looks pretty good right there. I'm going to come over here and check this one before I cut it. I'm going to go here. This one juts out just a little bit, so I'm going to come in here with that little happy medium that I talked about, which makes this off. You can see how off that line is, but now you do have to make sure though that everything is flat. So since I'm off a little bit, I'm going to make sure that I'm totally flat with this quilt. Nothing is pulling and hanging off, because that could be why that's off. I mean, you know, it doesn't happen perfectly all the time, so but you want to get it best you can. Okay, so let's line this up again. And remember that this is the standard right here, this one is. And then I come in with this square. What's that look like? I'm not sure that that helped at all. So I'm going to tweak this. I'm going to come up a little bit with that ruler because I still have a little bit left here. I know it's fussy for sure. I'm going to come up all the way, which brings me to that notch on my ruler. So I'm lining up my border, because what happens is everything gets suctioned in when you do all this beautiful quilting, and it could change your lines. And so you have to account for that and know that that happens. And then once you happy medium it, you're totally good. So I'm all the way at the edge there. Now I'm looking in here. I mean, that still is way off there, but remember what I said. It is what it is. It happens. There's nothing you can do about it. You just have to find the happy medium. So now I'm going to line this one up and see where I'm at here. If I keep this ruler straight, where it's going to land here. See, it's cutting off a lot of that border. And I know I don't want that. So let me bring this ruler up a little bit. And then if I bring this square ruler up a little bit, one of my tricks and tips that I can give you here, say you have an issue just like I am having right here, where I had a lot of this sticking out. Well, what I could do is still keep this out here, out so that, meaning, you know, I'm not going to cut a lot of that off. I can bring this square ruler up ever so slightly, and what happens is I can see batting there. But remember, our binding will cover most of that. So if it's just a sliver of the batting sticking out of the ruler and there's no color, just remember it's going to be covered. And I think that's a huge tip in quilting, so that way you don't have to cut it all off. Make sure everything's straight. I know I keep saying that, but that's key. That in here is still off, but nothing we can do about that. Now, if I did not bring this ruler up, you can see, look at how much I'm still cutting off here. Still cutting off quite a bit. But I would be cutting off way more if I squared it up totally and brought this ruler down. Look at, if I brought that down, look at how much I'd be cutting off there. No, I don't want that. I'm going to re-straighten this quilt though, just to make sure that I'm on the money here, because I don't want any drag or anything to happen. My quilt's kind of hanging off the table, but I have something leveraging it, but still, you just, you know. This is an important quilt. This is my grandbaby's first birthday quilt, so it's important. Be careful when you come up to these two rulers too. That I'm always afraid. I move my ruler every time too, because what happens is these aren't one ruler, so what's going to happen? Your rotary blade's going to catch on that, so just be careful. Okay, we're going to keep this straight right where it was. Hopefully I didn't move it. I might have. I don't know. Hold this. That looks pretty good in here though, friends. You know, you got to take the wins when you can, right? I changed my rotary blade too, so things are a lot smoother. Yes. This one's a little different because I don't know what happened, but I ended up going really shy on the inner part of this one on the side, so I have to come in quite a bit on this one and cut that off. And this one I had done prior to the one you saw me do the video in, so this is the very first one that I gap quilted. I mean, I can't remember doing it that way, but it looks like I did it that way. I probably allotted for that, I'm sure I did, because I wouldn't have left that knowing that I have a terrible memory, and I'd be like, what did I do there? So I think we're still going to have enough going size-wise. these rulers are nice right here. I had forgot that I had this. This one is about 36 inches long. It will go the length of a yard for you. It's like having a big yardstick. So you want to make sure that everything's nice and flat. And then you want to take your ruler, line it up on the edges. By edges, I mean you want to line it up here and you want to line it up on this edge. Because remember, we squared those in coming inward. So now when I line up this ruler along this edge here and this one here, I can just see how much I'm going to need to cut off if I push it all the way out. Okay, friends, the joys of YouTube. My camera did not catch me trimming any of that, which stinks. So I really wanted to share with you how that ends up. But I can show you on here, after I trimmed up the sides, how I double check. And this is just from Caterpillar. We gave them away at our quilt retreat this past year, and it is just a little suction thing to help you with these big rulers, right? And that's all it is. You just set it there and then pop it closed. When you have that piece of fabric still here on the end, on the edge here, where you only have trimmed the corners and not the sides, you're going to take your ruler and line it up along the edges, this edge down here and this edge down here, making sure that everything is nice and flat. You can see exactly how much you're off when it comes to being straight with this ruler. And I do have a little bit I need to cut off here. Don't know if you can see it, but I'm just going to hold this ruler and I'm just going to slice to, take that big gap out of there that was showing, which was that much, which, hey, it adds up. So I hope that helps. I'm sorry about that footage. I just, you can't re-put things back on and recut. So I've decided I'm going to throw you a curveball today. I'm going to put rounded corners on here. Let me show you how I do it. I love putting rounded corners. They're actually so much easier than mitered corners, but those are easy too once you start doing them. But here I've just taken and folded in half this quilt to where 2 of the corners are together. The next thing I'm going to do is just pin down here somewhere just beyond that point, because I don't want these to shift. I want these to be identical. So I'm just going to pin those together just like so. Now I'm just going to take a regular whatever from your kitchen, a bowl or a plate, whatever will do. Lay this down so that you have the plate is right along the edge of the side there. And then you're going to take a marking utensil. These are heat erasable pens. I actually found these at Walmart, friends. Oh yeah. And they will erase with heat. And there I have my corner all set. Then I'm just going to take my scissors here, the sharp ones, and then I'm just going to trim those together. I just feel like I have more control with my scissors rather than my rotary cutter trying to make this curve. So that's why I opt for these. And that's all I've taken off there. And then when you unpin, you have perfectly rounded corners. Oh, this is going to be so cute. I'll flip this over. And I've just folded it into 4s. That's all, friends. It's no big deal. I just folded it. No biggie. You don't have to do them separately or anything like that. And just line them up. Make sure everything's straight here at the corner. Go ahead and pin. Add your plate on. Push your plate up against the sides here. Just go ahead and make your curved mark, just like so. You're going to go in and just trim. Perfect. I've decided that I'm going to put a flange binding on this cute little gap quilt. I know, I keep getting more technical and more technical with this one, right? This is a cutoff from the back of that linen sheet that I made sure that I kept when I put the linen sheet for the backing, and I figured I would use this for the binding. But then I decided I wanted to do a flange. So I'm going to add this in and make the flange this, and then this the moreover, you know, binding. But I'm going to get a little bit more technical. And yeah, you know, the harder the better for me, right? My challenges to myself keep getting more and more. So for the flange binding, so I don't have to match all these ginghams up, I am going to put this flange binding on point or at a 45-degree angle. This is the 45-degree mark, and this is the 45-degree mark. It's like a big X here on the end of this ruler. Let me see how this would end. Take this 45-degree line here and add it over here and make sure it lines up along the edge. And you want to clean up your edges too if they're not already. This one looks clean enough for me there on the edge. Lining up that line here on the 45-degree mark. And it doesn't have to be really perfect because you're not going to be able to tell, I don't think, at all. Or you can line it up on one of the lines here on the gingham. I think that's what I'm going to do. And then here, this 45-degree line here that's coming down, you can maybe line it up there. 9 times out of 10, friends, these ginghams are not straight anyways, so I end up doing this anyways. So this will be my first strip cut here, and then this will be extra out here, and then if I need to use this, I can, because I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough. So set that piece aside. We may use it, we may not. I never know. I should have enough, but it's like 3/4 of a yard, so I should definitely have enough. So once you have that angle cut on there, then you just simply go in and take your ruler and then cut the amount of width that you want. So once you have all of your strips cut, you're going to go ahead and just connect them together. Mine already have an angle on them just because of the way I cut on the bias. So I'm going to try and line those up to see if I can't save some fabric here. And I just want you to notice, if you want to match these up, which if I can help it, I take care of it right now, but if I can't, I don't worry about it really. I mean, it's going to all blend in. Trust me, it's going to be a tiny piece that's sticking out. So just say you fold that in half, just like that. So that's going to be what you sew on. It's like a memory crease, so to speak. Open that back up. So if I make sure that that memory crease, the tip of it, is down here on this edge, and that this one is up top here in this L shape or angle shape here, I want this to be flush with this down here. I mean, you're not going to get it right on probably the first few times you try it, but just give it a try. And then when I flip it back this way, I'm going to hold this underneath right here and grab my pins. But what I want you to take note of, this tip where that crease is right flush to that. And this crease, the bottom of that crease, is right flush with that. And then you can take your ruler. Don't freehand it like what I'm doing, but take your ruler and go from corner, this crook here, to this crook here with your line. And that is the line that you're going to sew on when you take it to your sewing machine. And then take out your pins, and you will trim this right here at a 1/4 inch, you know, seam allowance. And when you flip this, yeah, I didn't really get on the line that great, but I'm going to leave that because, yeah, that's fine. Nobody's going to see that that's off. So here's a mock-up of the flange binding and what it's going to look like for you when you go to sew it together. So the flange is that little tiny piece of color that sticks out from the binding, that accent color that you want to just make your quilt sparkle. This is 2 inches in width. This is the bind. This is what comes from the back and wraps around to the front. This is going to be 1.5 inches. Now, mind you, this is how I do it. Quilters do it all different ways when it comes to flange binding, and this is just another way to do it. So what you're going to do is just put right sides together of your binding and your flange. So a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down. It's going to look like this, all sewn up. No matter whose technique you use when you do a flange binding, you always want to take the flange portion and press that seam allowance toward the binding side. It makes a big difference. When you get to this point, you'll know what I mean. And so that's what it looks like all pressed out. You just have this one big flat piece. So we pressed this toward the binding, and now what I do is I fold it over. Most quilters will take this and put that all the way down there and connect those raw edges. Well, I don't, because it makes too little of a binding here, and I don't want that tiny of a binding. I want some impact on this quilt. And I usually do this on all my flange bindings. I want to leave about a 1/4 inch or so, 1/8 to a 1/4 inch, all the way here after I've folded it in half. So that's the inside, and you can see the fold mark there. So I folded it, and there's the flange side. You can see a 1/8 to a 1/4 inch is left. And then when I turn it around, you don't see anything down here on the bottom. But you can see this real pretty gingham right there. Isn't that cute? Say this is the back of your quilt right here, and you're going to attach this. So you're going to go to the back of your quilt and make it so you're looking at the flange pretty side. And you're going to line up that binding side, that white piece of fabric, right along the edge of your quilt where you trimmed it. You're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down, connecting these two together. But here's the difference. I catch this bottom edge ever so slightly within that seam allowance. So I am literally sewing on both pieces, connecting it all together. I've done it a few different ways to where I've actually sewn these together to begin with, and then went in and put another row of stitching, but I didn't do that this time. Stitch that all to the back. And when you go to turn this over, say that that is stitched up. So when you make that fold there, when you come back and wrap to the front, you're gonna end up with something that looks like that. And that is just so stinking adorable, I can't take it. And then of course you will stitch in the ditch right along there, tacking that all the way down as you attach your binding onto the front. So yeah, that's all it is to flange binding, friends. So I've left a tail here at the end, friends. We can close this up. It's a good 10 inches or more, actually. And I've just started sewing this binding on. This side with both of the colors, the white and the gingham red, that's going to be facing right sides to the back of this quilt. And then you're just going to sew, and I'm going to try to grab the gingham here as I go. I don't always grab it. Sometimes it misses it, but that's okay, because for the most part, it's all going to be tucked in there nicely. So you're just going to attach this just, you know, like regular binding now. So you're just gonna keep going up around this corner, and you're not going to pull taut on this. Do not pull tight. If you pull this towards you, the binding, and try to lay this on here, you're gonna have a big pucker pull at the corner of your quilt. So when you add on a curve like this, you're just going to simply push it and kind of lay it in there as loose as you can with it still staying there. You don't want to just, I don't want to yank on it because I don't want to ruin it, but to show you what yanking on it looks like, but you get the picture, right? So I'm just kind of, maybe even ease a little bit of that in there, just kind of so that it lays there nice. And then I'm just going to take that 1/4 inch. And if I had my tweezers, I would pull this, which I don't know, they're in the other room, I think, with my slow sew stuff. So I'm just going to lay this down, and I'm just going to curve it so that it goes with the curve of the corner there. Lift up your foot here and then readjust and just, oh, yeah, push. I'm taking and pinching here and kind of fraying that out, kind of like a webbing it out and pushing it toward that corner. But I'm not pulling on this at all. I'm just kind of pushing in and laying. If anything, I'm pushing toward the needle because I know from trial and error that that will happen. And maybe shift this like this after you, and with your presser foot in the air. And again, you're just going to lay that down in that curve area, kind of making it go there in the shape of that curve. Make sure everything is laying nicely. I have a tendency to go slim on those curved corners, rather not taking a big or enough of my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I've had to go back and redo those and make my seam allowances thicker there because it'll look funny if you don't take enough of the bite of the seam allowance. I hope that makes sense. You're just going to go slow. I mean, it's not a race, really. And then you're coming to the end of the curve part. Again, you're just laying in there nicely. And you'll know if you didn't take enough. You'll know. Because it won't fold over nicely. It'll fold too much over. And then once you're done with that corner, the curve, you just then lay down the rest and continue on. So what I did was put that binding on the back, wrap it to the front, and I did take it to my pressing station and fold these over and just give that like a memory crease so it wants to go that way. And I haven't connected anything yet. That'll be after I show you this. So just lay this down, come over here. You're going to come right where that ditch is, in between those two fabrics. And then you're just going to sew. You're coming up onto the corner. Just be mindful to keep mushing this forward, this corner part, and then just keeping that needle right where those two bindings meet up. Go nice and slow too if you have to. It's okay. See this, but look how cute. Oh my goodness. Look at that binding. Oh, it's going to be so cute. Okay, let me keep going. When you get the binding almost sewn up, you end up with these two tails at the end. What you need to do is take each side and unpick them a little bit, because what we need to do is separately attach these bindings to each other, the flange to the flange on this side with that same L-shape type of connection, and then we sew them together as one. Make sure everything is laying nice and flat so you know where you're at with all this. It can get tricky with all these binding tails, right? Fold this back onto itself. Make sure that this is open. And then bring this so that way you have like a 1/8 to a 1/4 inch gap right there. Let me make sure I have the creases really good, and then I'm going to mark them. Clip all that bulk together right there, so that way it takes up the gaping of that quilt, so that way you can work on this. And then what you're going to do is fold it like this, and you're going to find the center dot here, which is essentially right in the center of X or the plus sign there. So then you're going to just fold this over like so, crease that, and then it gives you that plus mark, and then you're just going to dot that on the right side of the fabric and dot that there on the right side of the fabric. And you're going to pull this tail out so that it is right side up. And then you're simply going to take this one and this right side up. And you're going to make those two dots right there kiss. Sometimes I'll take a pin and go right in the center. Go right in the center there on that dot, and then grab that one right in the center there. And you want to make sure that it's that L shape, right, that we did in the very beginning. And then this is going to go from here to here. That is going to be the sewn line here from this corner to this corner. And you definitely want to mark your line there because you want to be able to see that. Again, use your ruler, don't freehand like me. Oh my goodness, okay. So sew from that corner to that corner, and you're going to do the same thing here with this one. So I've sewn that up right along the line that I wrote on there, and I pull it straight to see if there's no gaping or anything, and there's not. So this is a go. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim this, and I tend to trim these tails one by one because it would be just like me to cut into something I shouldn't, right? And then you would press these open. So that seam is ready to go. Now we need to work on this. So it's all sewed up and they're separate. I did cut this and press the seam allowances. Now the next thing you're going to do is connect this back together. Making that binding one again, we're going to attach it to the back, and then I'm going to bring it around front just like I did the rest. And there you have it, friends, a nice flange binding. Oh my word, adorable, just adorable. Check out this sweet little vintage Dick and Jane book set that I bought to go with this American Jane quilting fabric that I used in this quilt today. It was only $16, so you know I couldn't pass it up for my baby girl. Oh my word, I just cannot get over this quilt. It's so stinking cute. I love the rounded corners. I love the flange binding. Oh, it's just so cute. The little pictures in here of these little girls reminds me so much of my baby Julia, my granddaughter. All backed with linen. And here is this sweet little embroidered note right here. Julia's first birthday, Mimi loves you. I mean, so cute. I can't wait for her to get it. This just might be the cutest quilt I've ever made. The sweetest quilt I've ever made. Look at your screen right now. Part 1, Gap Quilting, is on here. Go ahead and click it so you can see all the ins and outs of my Gap quilt. My design wall tutorial is also on the screen. Go ahead and click it so you can make one of these awesome walls like I have holding up this quilt. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.